Hey, welcome to Ask for Help.
Hurrah, hurrah. Oh, you look at
crash
okay, fine.
Today.
Fine, we're doing this? All right, fine. This is
I
fit.
needed a crash helmet today.
This is my bad print.
Well, mine's not printed, but now I know why stormtroopers miss all the time, because you can't see out of these things.
I was going to say this started out as a night owl, but now I've become Judge Dredd.
Oh, it does kind of look Judge Dredd-ish.
So
yeah, I don't like Prusa supports. Just going to say that. I love everything about that slicer, but I hate the supports.
Here, this is better. There we go.
Perfect. Now I got to actually find this chat because stupid me, I was watching the countdown on YouTube instead of our actual feed, which is about 10 seconds ahead of it. So,
all right.
Yeah, we've gone full Star Wars. You're right, Snapshot. Yeah, you know what? We've just been playing around with stuff. Quality on my video feed here clearly isn't working right still, but you can see a purple light behind me there that I can make it red, or I can make it off, or I can make it white. I've been playing with DMX technology this morning, so huzzah! I'm going to go blind probably, but oh yeah.
There you go.
Maybe we should do that when we're bringing out our lightsabers there. You know, have some Sith.
There you go.
Some green, have some red. Maybe a little purple saber, maybe. Happy Sunday, everybody. You know, I think I'm just going to declare today Stringing Sunday because it feels like with all this humidity that all my prints are stringing.
Yeah, I'm having kind of the same issue right now.
It's ridiculous.
Hey, welcome to the show. This is the First Layers Ask for Help, our regular Sunday afternoon chat with you folks and answering your questions that came in through email this week and answering your questions through the chat. We have Geraldine, my lovely wife, over on the chat, so she's going to be popping up questions as they come in today.
Hello.
We've got a few questions that came in through email.
And, you know, I'm going to jump the gun this time because I see Amin is in the chat there. And since we kind of waited till the show last week to talk about some Matter 3D stuff, they've got a great deal right now, guys. $80 gets you 3 rolls of PLA with free shipping. I got to get it right to Calgary and Edmonton, correct?
Yes. So,
yeah, no codes required. Just go check out the website there. Yeah, we're stocking up on filament now that it's starting to get into the right weather conditions. Well, we are stocking up.
You know, with a 3-pack of filament, it's actually quite nice because you get 3 colors of filament for $80. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah, absolutely. Shipping. Yeah, exactly. You know, and you know, this stuff is pretty reliable. I won't lie. Everything I'm doing now is out of Matter 3D. So.
Dominic Versetto is saying, my grandson says Star Wars is for boomers. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm not.
I'm a millennial. I'm a millennial, man. So I love the Star Wars.
So Amin's correcting us, and he's saying it's Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver is where you'll get
sorry, my West Coast friends. I wasn't sure about what the cost is to ride the ferry these days. Maybe you just, I don't know. You know, if it's just a vehicle weight, maybe we just have to fill up a vehicle and get one poor soul to ride the ferry right now to get it free to Vancouver. Yeah.
Stephen Snow says he just purchased 4 colors from M3D.
Ooh.
Very nice. Very nice.
You know what? I have it on my machine, so I'll have to pull it over, but we've got some of the gray here, and it's just stellar. And then I just did a run last night of some ABS parts with the matte black ABS, and it just comes out so smooth. Okay, Stephen Stone not getting a discount 2 days ago. So here's what's going on right now is actually there's a sale on right now, I believe, still.
Yes.
And yeah, it's 20% off right now, so it's actually better than our discount code right now. So it's coming at $27.99. It's just kind of like a little inventory clear out because they are moving warehouses, and so the easiest thing is just to dump it out cheap for you guys. So if you're looking to get some,
move it.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead and
move it to customers.
Move it to customers is cheaper than moving it to a new location sometimes. So, yeah, now's a good chance to stock up on some. Duet 3D, my droid is 80% Matter 3D natural PLA. Okay, Tim, I have to see those photos. I really want to see how that came out. Because, oh boy, that, transparent filaments, when your machine is dialed in, they can come, everything can come out gorgeously. We saw the photos of my vases before.
Yep.
A couple of prints Richard's done are on the Facebook group there. And, when your material is good and your machine's dialed in, transparents are amazing.
Yes, they are. Now, I want to say, wow, there's a lot of purple badges in the chat today. Thank you very much for all of our members that support us. And if you want to become a member, go ahead and hit that join button down below. There's three levels that you can take part in, and just pick one. There's a lot of benefit to being a member, and we've got some codes going out to our U.S. and overseas friends so they can get a discount on merch like this one. which is still
not
not
like
up
this
in the
one. This is
store.
my cute shirt of the day that Jess got me.
There you go.
So hashtag The Office if you guys. Like
I know
The
nothing
Office.
about The Office. Never.
Really?
Watched. Yeah.
Really?
Never
Oh
watched.
man. Oh yeah. You know, I think the sad thing is it's for us. Do I dare say plebs that work in the office?
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
You know, it's just like Office Space. It's a bit of a redemption to say, well, at least it's not that bad.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, I love seeing all that purple, that sea of purple badges in there. That looks great. We still have some white badges. We've got some new people. I know that we got a new person this week, which I just want to go and acknowledge really, really quickly because I didn't add his name. So
Scarecrow, purple is one of our favorite colors too. It's why we love purple.
Yes,
Me too.
we love purple.
We
Purple is our
are.
color.
Hey! If you guys want, if you remember our colors, for a while there we had an agreement with Spool 3D to produce our purple. If you guys liked that purple filament, or you want to see purple filament, let us know in the chat there. You know, we want to get some numbers and see if we can do a batch for you guys at some point.
There you go. Robert Coble is one of our newest members, so I want to say hello to Robert. Thank you for becoming a member. And
is he here today? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, everyone here today, we got Amon Baines, Dominic Versetto, DeWitt 3D, our friend Tim, Eagles Nation 350, Gary T, RT, Raymond Cleveland, Rex Waldy, Snapshot FPV, Stephen Snow, and the Scarecrow. That's the active participants. If you're here, it won't show up on the list unless you send us a message. So
that's right.
Throw us a thumbs up at the same time, and we are, I think, ready to rock with this here.
We are. We spent 7 minutes waffling on.
Yeah. Watching those numbers go, woo! We're not the WAN show yet. We don't have that kind of following.
That's right.
Yet.
Real quickly, I want to acknowledge the people that are in our chat today. Thank you very much for joining us, and those that are coming on. We've got lots to talk about today. There's a lot of things coming down the pipe. You'll notice this week we didn't put up a Saturday video again, and this is the last week before new content. Because we've got this wonderful frame that I've been putting together beside me. Yes, we are moving forward.
We already know about it.
Yeah, they already know about it. We are moving forward with the Voron build. So our first episode, which is going to be an introduction and talking about the frame, which will be coming this coming week for our members. You guys will get to see that on Friday, and for our regular viewers, that'll be out on Saturday. And we've got a new tip coming for you on Tuesday. Speaking of tips, this guy, you guys saw this on this week's Tuesday tip. This is a great tool. It's probably one of the best tools I've ever printed from Thingiverse. And what it is, for those of you that are not members yet and are in our chat, this is a torque wrench for your nozzle. It is 1.5 nanometer torque, the perfect amount of torque for your nozzle. You're going to put your nozzle in, you're going to screw it till you get that little click on the first one. Then you're going to put it on your machine, heat it up, and give it another turn just to seat it properly once all the metal is expanded. And as soon as you've heard that click from your torque wrench, you are good to go. Now, I stuck another one in the other side, another socket piece in the other side, so that I could undo the nozzles when it is warm or cold. So great thing there. DeWitt Snapshot FPV upgraded his membership to a top layer. Thank you very much. And DeWitt has become a member at the top layer as well. Thank you very much. Let's get to this question that's sitting up here from Ricky B. He says, Richard, I reconfigured my hot end for my Ender 3 Pro to the setup with the spacer and short piece of Capricorn. Prints really well now. Awesome.
Great.
Yeah,
you know, that Bowden setup can sometimes be the source of a lot of issues, you know, and it's always, people tend to rule it out before they actually look at it. So I'm glad working.
I'm glad that it's working out for you. Ben Brady says, I'm currently sourcing parts for 6 Voron switch wire printers. Wow.
Nice.
Building 6 printers. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, we're working on some sourcing right now. The TLDR is that getting stuff from China is actually now more expensive than domestic for a lot of items. So We're working with a lot of partners. I won't lie, you guys. I have between 3,000 and 4,000 bolts coming in this week. So we are definitely upping up our inventory for some new ventures popping up here soon. But some of them, we're building, I think, about 3 Vorons right now. Hey, yes. Stephen Snow, welcome to the first layer.
Welcome to the first layer, Stephen.
I gotta have like some kind of like party light to go off or something.
I've still got the swirling one that you've given me. I just haven't set it up yet.
Oh yeah. Well, over here, like if you guys saw the beginning of the show, they were playing with this DMX controlled light. I've just got a little USB dongle from Amazon, and I'm using a program called Q-Light Controller Plus, which is a free program, and maybe we'll get some cool lighting effects going on here in the future. But this is normally fairly expensive stuff. My local e-recyclers were listing this at, I think, $120, and I got it for $25 for them at the end of the day.
Nice.
So I just kind of pick up little pieces as I go for my studio space, if you will. Richard's a bit more fancy than me. He's got a bit more...
I don't have a DMX controller. I'd love a DMX controller.
Yeah.
But I don't have one. Some of my lights will actually work on a DMX controller.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, yeah. DMX, for those of you guys who don't know, it's basically like a serial protocol, and it's used in the lighting world and in the audio world even sometimes too, as master control. It's a glorified serial connection, and all of your IDs and devices have a common protocol. So when you set it all up, you can program light shows. This is how your acting theatrical events work. Even some theaters, like movie theaters, use DMX for lighting control. So yeah.
All right, let's get into the questions here.
Yeah, let's get into that. We're babbling today.
Yeah, we got Jeff Bowen in the email. He's got actually 2, so we're just going to kind of go through his first one here. He says, does anyone know why my extruder is varying speed? And we talked a little bit about this last week. Noticed it last night while calibrating the E-steps. No skipping. It just slows down to 2 or 3 seconds, not pushing... slows down, or not pausing, slows down, then speeds back up for 10 to 15 seconds. Try different filament, heated above normal temp, direct drive, just extruding 100 millimeters to calibrate E-steps. My results are not repeatable because of the speed variation. The results can vary from 10 millimeters to more than 30.
I wonder if he...
From test to test. I wonder if he
has a volumetric limitation or something in his code there. So there's 2
He is using the TH3D unified firmware. My personal opinion on that, to be perfectly honest with you, Jeff, 3D Jeff, is that I would not use the TH3D firmware. And I'll tell you why. If you are using... a stock board, which I assume you are. It looks like that's what you're using here is a stock board. I would just use the firmware from Creality. To be perfectly honest with you, I've found that to be almost flawless in its execution. It doesn't slow your motor down. You also may have a bad step stick. Now, he goes on to say, he says, so I downloaded Marlin 2.0. I get the same results not only with extrusion speed variations, but also with onboard controller. Did I screw something up? Again, this is going to go back to using the firmware that was designed for your printer. When we use somebody else's firmware, and this is something that's been rampant across the spectrum, is when we use somebody else's software, not say that it's bad, because there's a lot of great things about the TH3D firmware, about the printed solid firmware, and others that are out there right now. It's just that sometimes it doesn't respond well to the hardware that you're using. So by going back to the original firmware, you may alleviate some of these issues. Now, if you go back to the regular firmware, the stock firmware, you may find that you're still getting the same problems. And if you are, that indicates to us that you have a hardware issue, not a software issue. So that's something to really take into account. With a software issue, it's easy to kind of diagnose when you go back to the OEM firmware. When it becomes a hardware issue, it's a little harder to diagnose. And if all of your steppers are doing it, I'm almost sure that it's going to be firmware. Brian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, knowing the electrical properties, you got to remember that a printer is essentially dumb. We talk a lot about Marlin because that's our day-to-day user. But if you go to a program like Clipper, for instance, with a board like this, it's just interfacing all these I/O pins and being run with software on the other side. So the reason I mention that is because when it comes to a stepper, there's nothing internally on a stepper all the way back to your processor that says, if you're moving X speed, slow it down. It's always software. So generally, if you tell your extruder to rip away and you're exceeding what we call the max volumetric flow rate of that hot end based off that material and that temperature, then your extruder is going to click because it's going to try to keep moving forward. And at a certain point, either it's going to grind away the filament, or if the torque is even higher, it's going to, if the torque is lower for your set point on your driver, then it's going to bounce back and say, I can't overcome that. And after about 4 coil loops, and we'll go into motors in detail at some point here, but after 4 coil loops, you're basically back at the same coil. And so it bounces back, what is it? I'm going to do math in my head here. 6 or 7.9 or 2 degrees or something. So that's why you hear that clicking noise. So at the end of the day, if it is slowing down, it really sounds to me like either your G-code has some kind of limiter in there. And what I would suggest is send us over the G-code that you're using to extrude 100 millimeters of filament, or if you're doing it from the screen. If you're doing it from the screen, that's easy. Then we definitely have a firmware limitation somewhere. And I'm really thinking it's a volumetric flow rate limitation. And again, we'll go over what volumetric flow rate here is coming up. But for the time being, understand that it's kind of like an override. Yeah. And so just as you have a maximum acceleration rate and you have a maximum velocity rate, sometimes you can have a max volumetric flow rate enabled, which I'd have to check with Tim and see if they've enabled it in its firmware by default. But basically, it will slow things down to make sure to try and prevent your extruder from clicking. That's what it's trying to do, is maintain a good quality print setting by saying, hey, you're going a little too fast. This might be problematic, so let's back it off a bit and give it a chance to catch up and then speed up again. So yeah, please, if you can, send us your configuration file.
Questions at thefirstlayer.com.
Yeah, questions at thefirstlayer.com. You got it. I was rambling away there. I didn't see 3D to me code.
Super chat.
We got a super chat. Thank you very much, 3D Coats. He says, really looking forward to the Voron build videos. They are starting this week.
Yes, Richard's been hard working away. Needless to say, the reason we had to wait so long is because of procurement. It has been.
And there's still some stuff I don't have.
Yeah, there's stuff dribbling in, so we got ahead of things. And so to give you guys an idea, we're going to give you a little pre-hint here by being, a part of our live here stream, is your first thing you should be looking into is all the 3D printed parts, because that will take the most amount of time. Get that all organized and set up, and then place your orders for your hardware, because by the time your hardware shows up, your printed parts should be ready, and they are required almost day one for most of that build.
Now,
hey, Joseph Jolly, welcome to the top layer.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, this bag is most all of the parts except for the skirt for the Voron. And also, I don't have the mounting for all of the electronics in here yet. I still have to print that off. I ran out of black. But this is the black and white one. We are affectionately going to name this one TK. If you're a Star Wars fan, as I am, you'll know that TK is the first 2 letters in a stormtrooper's number. So, so Finn, for instance, was TK for whatever he was. So I thought about calling it Finn, but I just thought TK would be fine.
No, we need to go off canon and make our own thing here. Now, I was just thinking about it. For those of you, because it seems like a lot of you are interested in this build, Richard, maybe we should tell them the build dimensions that we're building right now, so that they know they'd be building that same size along us if they choose to follow it verbatim.
This is all the screws, nuts and bolts that you're going to need. Okay, so talking about what size we're building. We are going to build the Voron 2.4, version 2.4, which is a 300 by 300 by 300 build volume. Now, you can go one size up to the 350, or you can go one size down to the 250. I kind of thought right in the middle would be perfect for the first build for us. This is a machine that, if it does what we're hoping it's going to do, will be what we continue to build between Brian and I and Dave. And Dave is just a member of our community, kind of works with us behind the scenes, he does CNC work and woodworking and stuff like that with us. So we're going to do the 300 by 300 by 300 first. We're going to get it tuned and working great. And then we're going to start doing parts. And I had the box here. What did I do with it?
Just while Richard looks at it, what brand of ABS we're using? We are using Matter 3D ABS for some of them, and for a couple others, we're trying with eSun just to compare the two. Yeah.
This is all Matter 3D. All in this bag is black and white, is all Matter 3D. And in this little box is the new color that I'm really digging. This is the eSun Silver. It's kind of a gunmetal silver. And against the black, look how sharp that looks. Doesn't that look amazing? I love that.
Yeah, I love, you know what, admittedly, I was telling Richard about this the other week. I am really happy that we're getting more ABS colors other than black, white, and gray. It is a nice change out there, honestly. I never used to work with ABS, but now, you know, thanks about these draft shields and everything, now you can almost print ABS on any machine. And I'll do another follow-up video for everybody, not just the members, talking about printing ABS without an enclosure soon here. We covered it on a Tuesday tip. And if you're a member of Infill and Higher, you can always go back and watch that video and all of our other Tuesday tips.
You bet. So here's a great question that's going to lead into another question that we have in email. What temps are you using for Matter 3D ABS? Okay, if you can get there, start it at 260, 265. Then after about 5 or 6 layers, you want to drop that down to about 240. Then after about another 10, 20 layers, you're going to drop that down to 230. So that's the best way to print the Matter 3D ABS. Now, I'm printing it in an enclosure, so the printer that I have will only go as high as 245. And all of these parts, and let me just pull one of them out here. Close the bag. So these parts were printed at 245. Now you can see there's a little white on there, and I'm going to show you guys how to get rid of that white. This is just from the build plate, lifting up off the build plate, but you can get rid of that really, really easily. But this is the ABS black from Matter 3D, and it was printed at 245. And it really, really came out nicely. All the detail is there, everything that you need to know. And this is the white, and you can see how nice that came out.
One thing I really like about this stuff is that it's matte. That's the big thing, is I'm actually really growing. I'm having matte filaments really grow on me. I'm not really a fan of the glossy. I mean, the exception to the rule, and you saw this at the top of the hour here. I just got this Night Owl helmet off Jess's CR-10, and this is with Spool 3D's transparent black PLA I've been sitting on for a while. But I just love the transparency of being able to see through it. And obviously I lost my little nose piece here, so we got to reprint it. Nobody's perfect, right? But, you know, that was just a roll I grabbed off the top of my head. Normally I like matte filaments. I like less translucent because I don't like it being a 50-50 in between. But transparents are actually really good to have on hand, and I'll tell you why, because it really helps expose if you're having extrusion issues. Sometimes with, like a white or a black, you may not be able to see micro defects, but with the way of how light diffraction works, if you have some transparents on hand, you'll definitely start to notice those issues, and you'll think, oh, maybe there's something wrong with the filament. No, usually it's your printer has microscopic details you've kind of been dodging over. So again, pro tip for the day, just have a natural PLA or some clear material on hand just to test out your hot end once in a while.
So one of the things that was asked here was, what bed temperature am I printing at? I'm printing at 105, and I am in an enclosure. So I'm using the Flash Forge Creator Max to print my parts right now until the Voron is done. Then I'll be printing everything on the Voron. Now, that goes into our question here over on our email. This one's from Nikolai. He says, I have an enclosure and just printed a bench U with nozzle of temp of 230 and a bed temp of 110 with ABS. What settings in Cura do I need to look at to keep it from stringing? I cleaned it up a little bit with a small propane torch after printing. Thanks, the Scarecrow. And I think Scarecrow is in our chat today.
I'm pretty sure he's in here today. Yeah, I've been dealing with stringing myself, and actually I've been using the butane torch model just off camera. Let's see, I got one of these guys here, and these are a great little thing you can pick up from Amazon to torch off the stringing. It's not a fix for stringing, but it's definitely something to save your print. But anyways, going back to the question, go ahead.
This will go back to what we were saying earlier. You want to start as high as your printer will go.
Yes.
I know with the Flash Forge, it only goes up to 245 max. I haven't adjusted any of the firmware on that machine, so it can go higher. But at 245, I'm getting really good prints. I'm not getting any clogging. I'm not getting any over retraction. I'm just using the stock profile, and I've just adjusted the temperature. So I'm printing those parts all at 245, and they're printing great. So 230 is a little low when you're starting. So I would go up as high as you can go up on that, just to be on the safe side, Scarecrow, and that should solve your problem. Then just drop it, 5 millimeters and then another 10 millimeters. And that's what's recommended by Matter 3D as well, especially if you're printing in open air.
We're still experimenting with it just to get the right properties, because it does vary machine to machine. But in my experience, especially with the ABS, you got to remember ABS likes to cool slowly, and that's why we build enclosures. That's why we turn off the fan and all that, right? Now, just the other night when doing some testing with Matter 3D ABS, I did have my enclosed printer running bed at 100 or to 105, I believe, and the hot end, because of just my print settings, was starting out at 220, which does seem a bit low. But as I bumped it up, what I found was, even though it was adhering fine at 220, it did warp a lot more, and that's where that cooling transition happens. I really want to, eventually I'm going to do some more analytics with you guys there on the properties of ABS, but simply put, if you set that hot in as hot as you can right off the bat, that's going to be actually more beneficial than having your bed hotter than sin when it comes to this filament, because at the end of the day, the warpage is not caused by lack of adhesion to the bed. It's caused by the curling factor of the rapid cooling exceeding the surface tension of the build plate. So again, if you are not comfortable with getting your bed to 110 degrees, please just go and max out that nozzle first, and then start backing off the temperature as it is stringing. Now, we haven't talked about stringing in a long time. Yeah. But at the end of the day, stringing is a combination of too low of a retraction and too high of a temperature. And sometimes you can't go and drop those enough without impacting the print quality. So we always recommend look into your travel settings for your parts and try and look for the setting that says basically keep travel within walls. And that way any stringing that you have will be within the walls and your infill rather than crossing your part, which is when you have to bring out the torch and melt out all the threads. So look into that setting for sure. There are slicer things that can work around it. But remember, each material is different. I always recommend have a separate print profile for every material type.
So you guys remember that when I pulled this out, it had some white material on it. I don't know how well that'll pick up, but you can kind of see it there.
Yeah, we can see it there.
Okay. So here's how you get rid of that. You take your lighter, and you just go over it real quick.
Yep.
And that will all go away.
And so again, we're talking about these torches. I saw a comment there. I'm sorry, let me see if there it was. Someone said using a heat gun. I don't like using a heat gun, and I'll tell you why. This here is very directional. I'm going to see if I have a... You know what I do? I have the blob. Remember the blob from the other week there, guys? I got it right here in front of me. So let's say this is your string, little piece hanging off there, right? If I get in here, that's melted like that before it's even hit the surface. Now, if you're using a heat gun gets way hotter than your standard hot end. In fact, I think it can be as high as 300, 350 degrees Celsius, if not hotter. It's not hot enough to melt solder, but it's hot enough to pretty much liquefy this. So with a torch like this, you have a very direct point of heat going to that one point, and you have less likelihood of spreading it out. And as we've seen with our prints there, the more it blobs together, the smoother it gets.
Yeah.
If you're heating it to the point that it's getting shiny like that, you're kind of screwed, because now you have no way to rapidly cool it down. It's actually turned to liquid, and now the properties of your surface are changing. So that's why we like the little targeted systems, because it's just run in and bang, it's gone. Hopefully that helps clarify. I just don't like people playing with heat guns, because as I said, by the time you see it does something, it's too hot, and if you touch it, you can really hurt yourself.
Ready for a question?
Yeah,
let's go to the next question.
Let's go to the next question, Jerry. Okay, I now have an Ender 3. This comes from World Planet Gadget, Ender 3 Pro, and would like to buy an additional printer, but I'm not sure between a larger printer or a resin printer. What would you do? Well, here's the thing to think about. If you're not ready for resin and you're not doing anything that needs super detail, then I would go with another FDM printer to do bigger things like, helmets, props, whatever you want to do. But be aware that you are going to be limited to the types of materials that you print with. So if you're ready to move into resin, because you're going to be doing miniatures, or you're going to be doing, very detailed statuettes or stuff like that, then resin can be a great benefit. If you're not going to be doing that, then I would stick with another FDM. I would probably go with something in the 300 millimeter size. So you've got lots to choose from. You've got the Creality CR-10. You've got, you've got Bluer Plus. You've got, or ones from Two Trees.
I don't think Longer had one, did they?
No, I don't think they did.
No, and even like the Rock 3 Pro, is that not 300?
Rock 3 Pro is a 300. There's also, the Rock 3 is a 300. Then there's the D3 Pro, which is also a 300. And to be perfectly honest, I think those are just fine for somebody who wants to get another printer. And I think it's a great step up, so you can now start doing bigger things, or you can do more things on a build tray. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, Adam's saying build a Voron. Yeah, you're not wrong there. That's what we're slowly discovering now. That's why we're saying wait until our series, because we're going to be realistic with you guys, right? If something's stupid and doesn't work, we're going to tell you, or if we need to modify something. So Richard's building the core unit, following all the directions, and me being me, I'm building I think I can say this word on YouTube. I'm building a bastardized version. So you're going to see kind of all of both sides, and then you can make the determination, is it worth the risk? I won't lie to you guys, if you're building a 300 by 300, it's going to be very close, if not a bit more expensive than buying a standard machine that does 300 by 300 out of the box. There is different reasons we're building this other than cost.
Yeah, the reasons that we want to do the Vorons is because, of course, as most of you know now, if you've been part of our Facebook group and you've been part of our group here, you've heard us talking about it. We have now gone into our own little venture called...
Am I supposed to talk about? Okay.
Yes.
Western 3D printing.
So our 3D services will be everything from printing parts... right through to printing whatever a customer may want us to print within the bounds of the printers that we have. And we can do CNC work with the help of Dave.
Yep.
So we've got that. We launched the website yesterday.
Yeah, and by we mean Brian stayed up till 2 a.m. Saturday just building oh my gosh, I am so sorry for this quality, guys. Maybe you better bring it up on your side, Richard. I don't know what's going on with the stream. But I built a dinky little website for us because I had bought the domain middle of last year. Anyways, it's western3dservices.com. I'll post it in the chat there, and you guys can make fun of my bad bad web mastering skills there. But the reason we launched this website is there was actually an opportunity that popped up for Richard and I to get some retail space. So we have been busy prepping some retail stuff for here in Okotoks, Alberta. But the website's just kind of like the landing page for now. The Vorons are the primary focus of this business because we want reliable machines that print in the same consistency. But that doesn't mean we're getting rid of all of our old machines here. We just want to try some experiments and bring you guys along for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason that we chose the reason that we chose the Voron was because it's easy to source parts for. It uses pretty much everything is off the shelf parts, which is a bonus. So you're never without anything. You can pretty much easily fix it. With other printers, you don't know, especially if you're inexperienced, you don't know if you've got a Mark 10 nozzle, a Mark 8 nozzle, a Mark 7 nozzle. You have no idea until you really have a look at it or have somebody look at it for you. So in this regard, I'm using the E3D V6. I'm going to upgrade things so I can print hotter materials with it. So we'll be able to print PEEK, and we'll be able to print polycarbonate, and we'll be able to print just about whatever we want to throw at it. So that is the idea behind the Voron print farm that we are. I'm going to
try and use my Triangle Lab Dragon hot end. Unfortunately, many of you have heard they had to discontinue it. And you know what? I just want to speak briefly on this, guys. I went and I looked at Fadis's Dragon hot end, and I, honest to goodness, thought that the designs would have been different enough that it's not trying to sell it as a counterfeit product. But that's just my opinion. I haven't tried the Fadis hot end, and maybe if they're willing to reach out to us, I'd be more than happy to try it by comparison. But this is going to be the future design, I think, for E3D hot ends for high flow variants.
I think
don't go cheap. If you're going to build the Voron, don't go cheap with your hot end. That's going to be your money maker right there. And that's kind of the thing we've said all along. Don't buy a cheap J head. Buy a brand name E3D, because that's where all the problems arise.
Now let's get to this question. What's your opinion on lightweight PLA? I've never used lightweight PLA, so I really don't have an opinion on it. Brian?
I haven't heard of it myself too. I'm curious what mixing agents they're using in there, because anytime you're doing lightweight something, you're mixing in a material that has a lower density. And a great example of low density stuff I have it here. I haven't done anything with it yet, guys, but this is some additional what the heck do they call these things? Good old Sundays. Aerogel. This is the insulation material I'm starting to experiment with all the machines. I had to order this in from the US, but this is one of the least dense materials on Earth, creating a basically effective insulation in a much smaller form factor. So when it comes to material density, you're always changing the properties. That's what I'm trying to get at. And I would rather reduce my infill and exterior walls before I experiment with a lightweight PLA, if you will. I'd rather have something like Matter 3D, who uses a better quality pellet in the plastic, and because of that, I can print it thinner and lighter. And you'd be surprised at the strength. Sometimes it comes down to the curves of your mesh surface instead of the actual material strength. So we're going to talk a lot more about that. My shout out of the week is, guys, go check out CNC Kitchen sometime, because that guy does the most in-depth coverage of material science sometimes when it comes to 3D prints and structural rigidity. So I'm not going to try and step on his feet. I would say go view his content. You'll be mesmerized at the detail he goes into.
Hey, we got a super chat from Henry Stofferin, and he says, did I miss the members only Thursday? If so, I'm sorry I missed it. You did not miss the members only Thursday.
No, we
ran into some logistical issues and time issues between Brian and I. So the live stream is this Tuesday. Brian and I have decided, correct? Yes. Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are going to announce it here by the end of day today, so people can mark it on their calendars. But it is Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to do it the same way we did it last time, allowing our members to be a part of the show and ask their questions. And we will be streaming it live, so if you don't want to be on camera, then don't join the live conversation on screen.
Or just turn off your camera.
Or turn off your camera.
Yeah, we prefer a camera on so you can show off your prints to people and stuff.
And that's exactly what we want. We want you to have your camera and your microphone working. So if you don't have it working, test it before Tuesday so you can be part of our group. Okay. Next question. This comes from Dominic Versetto. Does anyone make a compression fitting for the Bowden tube on the Creality style hot ends? Like on the E3D high temp ends?
Oops, I'm throwing screws everywhere here. But
I don't. There are a couple of companies that do, and I'm not sure which they are. But E3D has their patented system, I guess. I'm not sure if it's patented or not.
Well, if you want to dig into this, I mean, at the end of the day, most Bowden-style fittings out there are designed for air pressure systems, and so they're designed for a different style of pressure applied to it. But that being said, if you have any dealers in your area that deal in pneumatics, just bring in your Bowden tube, a Beast Bowden tube, and even one of your existing Bowden connectors, and they can source some great quality stuff. And I mean, you can pay upwards of $100 a connector sometimes, depending on the grade. I know a few different ones I have. I don't have them in front of me here, but you know, some of them, they actually come with a metal collet at the top and are really strong. Some of them have the actual metal fins that hold it into place built into the metal part, versus E3D has them as little spikes on the plastic insert. There's tons of options to experiment with. At the end of the day, what I've been kind of learning through my experience is that all Bowden connectors can hold up to a certain point, and even the best quality ones will break under the right circumstances. So if you're burning through them a lot, obviously you've got a hot end issue with flow, but you may want to look at reducing your spring tension on your extruder so that it bounces back rather than forcing your filament to shove the tube out the end. And it gives you an audible notification if it is clogging. So,
yeah, so that pretty much answers that question. I don't have to say anything else about that. But I do have a question here in email. It's this one is from Suds Are Reels.
Love it.
Name. He says, I want to know why my BLTouch won't level. Can you please help me? I'm having major issues. Please get back to me. Would love to hop in a call and talk about it and explain in more details. I'm a young entrepreneur trying to get my business up and running. So it not working or not leveling means that you probably have the offset not correct, or your wiring is wrong if it's not actually deploying the pin when it comes down. So you want to make sure that you've got everything set up correctly according to the instructions. If you don't have it set up correctly or plugged in correctly, you can run into issues. And it's usually on that signal line that you're going to run into issues.
So I made a boo-boo this week, so I'm gonna share this with you guys because it helps a lot. I broke another BLTouch. It's just simply the wires. Well, hey, the wires, the connector got pulled up by mistake and it ripped off the two leads to the coil section. So I can actually show you guys a dissected BLTouch. And this is what I want to show you this is the generic plastic inside of the BLTouch. Hopefully that's coming through okay-ish. What you can see is the pin drops only a small amount at the top here. And inside the top part of the pin, you're going to see a dark part. That's a piece of metal that's magnetic. And underneath this tape up here is a giant electromagnet, basically. So when it's sitting in its resting position, in the upwards one, it's self-holding itself with magnets. Now, the real magic of the BLTouch is in the little board here. And normally you get to see the outside view with your little part code and all that. But you don't get to see the inside view. And what we got here is we've got two connectors up here that drive that coil to push the pin down, and that's what the probe pin does. And then at the top here, you've got this little component sticking out, and this is a Hall effect sensor, which is basically a fancy name for a magnetic pickup. And so the idea is supposed to be that your magnet drops down, and then as it's moving back up, when it touches the bed far enough that the waveform read by this little chip says your magnetics are going away, it says it's touched the bed, and it tells the coil at the top to, okay, disengage electromagnet, let it bounce back into place. That's all a BLTouch is. So because the pin is so further down, you want it to touch the bed. Sorry, focusing is terrible here, but you want it to touch the bed before anytime before the nozzle, but to a point where when it's retracted, it's above the nozzle. And that's where we start playing with Z offsets, is we want this pin to drop below the nozzle, but get picked up by this little sensor before the nozzle touches the bed. And then the difference in distance between when it detected the bed and when the nozzle touches the bed is your Z offset. And if you don't have any of that set up right, the BLTouch is not going to do anything for you. You know, it's very precise because it's that physical touch of the surface. But that being said, a lot of people, you know, one of the biggest issues I've seen with people having issues is when they change out their pin at the top, you don't screw in the little grub screw to the correct depth. And that is defined on the BLTouch website, how far you need to screw that in. Also, over time, you know, people bend their pins, and then, you know, you can straighten it out a couple times. Eventually, it might not do any good. And as well, too, if any of this is bent on the inside, you can see there's almost no room for side-to-side travel here, you can see. So if things bend and they don't retract in the same way, then the probe reports an error back to the system and says, no, don't use my data, it's all out of whack. So the BLTouch is extremely precise, but it does require a bit of understanding on how it works and, you know, your speeds. But once you get it dialed in, your precision on this probe is something like 0.001 millimeters. So you're going to get a real good view of that bed.
So 3D to me has jumped up to the infill section. Thank you very much.
Welcome 3D me.
So now we're going to get into another question here. This is from Dominic. He says, thanks, guys. I have a Titan extruder. I never thought about loosening the extruder tension. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Yeah,
that one bit me a few times, notably with the dual gear extruders, because if you grip that too tight, the best way of, you know, think of it like a pasta roller, right? And if you have a pasta roller that, you know, can roll the pasta through and there's no room on the other side, what's going to happen? It's going to keep forcing it into there because the torque against that piece that's folding through is way higher than anything downstream of it. And, you know, that's when we see print failures. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, my extruder's clicking, I must have something calibrated wrong. No. Look at the flow path. You're trying to push something down a tube and it's struggling. The question shouldn't be, should I increase its power? It should be, why is it struggling? And that's what we're trying to, you know, focus on with our learning here is get to the root cause of an issue. Don't try to patchwork it to make it work.
Yeah. Andrew says, hi, strange issue. I've created a number of designs using SketchUp Pro, and most print fine. One design I made, 2 keyholes in the base of the case. Import to Cura, looks fine when sliced, disappears. Just because it disappeared doesn't mean it's gone. Sometimes what happens, because of the amount of geometry that's in it, Cura can't pick up once it's sliced. It loses a disconnect between the actual representation of the G code and the actual part or STL that you've put in. Save it to your drive, try printing it. If it continues to happen, I would lower the triangle count if you can, or lower the geometry count, and it should appear in Cura with no problem.
Yeah, if parts of it are disappearing, I also think you may have a manifold issue. And we talk briefly always on the live streams, but never a video. If you go and chop a hole in something, depending on the program, remember that a 3D part is just a boatload of triangles or rectangles, depending on the methodology, that are all tied together in virtual points. It doesn't mean that it's a solid object. It just means all the triangles come together. Now, if you go and bore a hole, and let's just say you delete a bunch of faces on both sides, because there's nothing in the polygon data that says, okay, now that you've deleted that, we need to build triangles down through there to hollow out a hole, you basically have a mesh with 2 open holes on it. And when you bring it into Cura, or any slicer, there's a lot of built-in tools to try and fix what we call these non-manifold errors. And it doesn't always work. You know, a lot of people sometimes will go to NetFab, to fix it. I know a good example actually is a part I've got down here that I'm working on. I did in my first attempt at 3D modeling a mask that I'm going to be adding clay to here, but I modeled it as a single flat texture here, and then I had to figure out a way to give it a back so that it would 3D print. And just putting a texture across the back wasn't enough. I actually had to extrude these holes back through the back and actually build my own triangle data in there, because none of the slicers would fix the manifold errors. So modeling is a very different area of 3D printing, and we don't generally cover it because there are so many things to it. But my pro tip is if you're going to try and do something creative with modeling, get a program like ZSculpt Core Mini, which is free. It's the new version of Sculptress, or learn it in Blender, or even try it with Mesh Mixer, because those programs will do its best to make the object stay manifold as you're modifying it and retain it to be 3D printable.
There you go. That's why I like having Brian around some days. Gives me
I
a
know,
break.
yeah,
I don't have to talk all the time.
He gets really
I
technical.
experiment with a lot of things. Like, as I said, this took me, because I am not an experienced modeler by anything, this, I think, took me 4 or 5 hours just to get the proportions right. And even then, the only reason it's so rough is because I'm putting clay on top of this and then 3D scanning it again, because I am not very good at computer modeling.
Okay, I want to go to Snapshot FPV really quickly. He says that Richard and Brian, thank you again for the help with bed leveling the LD-002H and the adhesion issue I was having. And it says, tips worked a treat for those of you who may be new here. Tips given here are great and derived from experience. Thank you, TFL. You are very welcome. We do appreciate the kind words, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help you get a better experience with 3D printing. We do it through education. We do it through these answering question live streams. We try and do educational videos throughout the week. And our newest educational video is how to build a printer from scratch. And we're using the Voron 2.4 for that. It is a little more involved, but everything we're going to teach you in that build can be applied to any other printer, hands down. Okay? So that's something I wanted to make you guys aware of, that it is something that we are doing to push you a little bit more into trying to build your own, or learning how to suss out different issues that you may be having with yours. And by doing a custom build or a scratch build in this case, it's not really a scratch build because it's all open source, but
you know what? It's to better understand the kinematics and the structure of a printer.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is stuff that Richard and I had to learn kind of through guessing and checking early on. You've seen my Ender 3 Tall in a few videos before there, where I just, you know, there was nothing out there for modifying these. And this was before, actually, it was just when Mark started making the Ender extender kits. And I reached out to him and said, hey, you know, it's going to be too expensive to get this to Canada. Can you tell me a bit about it? And then I just experimented on my own. And you know, it's getting easier with these kits, and that's what. But we want to show you guys, you know, the anatomy of a printer, and there's no better way of doing it than doing a build from the ground up to understand what each part is. Now, that being said, we also have, you know, tons of hours of not safe for work content already, by the sounds of Richard. So, you know, it's not going to be an easy thing, but it's going to definitely be a learning experience. That's why I want you guys to take on. Adam C saying, if you make mistakes, leave them in the video. Absolutely, yes. So I've got a video coming up, guys. I'm going to tell you right now. It took about
bed leveling.
Took about, I want to say, 2.5 hours to shoot. I don't know how much actual video content I have on that card there, but by the time it's done, I realized the last half of it is not applicable because of a mistake. But I'm debating actually keeping that in the video, just to show you guys, hey, you know, here was my thought process after that and how wrong I was. The main thing is we don't want to lead you on the wrong direction either. So we will put a lot of disclaimers when it's like, we're doing something wrong, but we're leaving it in.
Yeah, exactly. World Planet Gadgets
is wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
He says, many people have problems with bed leveling, and that is very true. I've leveled my bed once and then placed lock nuts at the bottom and print with them for weeks without decaying. Or am I the lucky one? Now, you could be the lucky one.
But once you've done it right.
You've done it right, yeah. Once you've got your bed level, chances are you aren't going to have to level it again for, you know, a number of prints. Now, you are going to have to level it after so many prints, but the key to it, first and foremost, is having it on a surface that doesn't move around. So if you're putting it on an IKEA table, probably not a good idea. If you're putting it on a good solid table with good solid legs, like a desk or a workbench, it's going to last a lot longer. The problem is that the vibration that is caused by the printer down into the surface it's sitting on can translate back up, and over time, because it's moving, it's all moving, things will loosen up on you. That can throw off your bed level. So our point is, make sure that when you build your printer and you've got it, you put it on a good stable surface that's not going to move around a lot. And that doesn't mean taking a paver and putting it onto an IKEA table. That means putting it on a good stable surface to begin with. So by putting those nuts on the bottom, the lock nuts on the bottom, he's done himself a great service, but he's also reduced the amount of space in which he can turn those wheels. That's not a bad thing. Once you've got it in that level zone, you should be good to go. Right?
Yeah, and just when it comes to leveling, like putting the locking nuts on there is great and all. What I find is most people, where they lose their bed leveling is, especially if you're using mirror or glass and you're removing the bed often. Now, at the end of the day, actually the best way to remove a print when you're done printing with mirror glass is actually to remove your clips, take the glass off the bed, and then work somewhere else to remove the print, because usually the vibration of shaking that part back and forth, if it is stuck on there, is going to throw your bed leveling right out of the park there. In a perfect world, rigid standoffs such as aluminum ones will firmly hold that in place, but it doesn't mean that your bed's going to be perfectly flat. There's other issues such as your gantry and other parts of the machine that, if not tightened in the perfect balance, they will loosen over time. A lot of people are using Loctite Blue and similar products just to lock these things in place, but even that is not perfect. Eventually, the movement, because you have movement kinematics, the vibration will cause something to move over time. So at the end of the day, that's why I like BLTouches, is because I really only have to re-level my bed every 6 months with a BLTouch, because the changes are so minor. The BLTouch will pick up on it, but there's no need to actually re-level the bed. I also do things like my flex sheets, the magnetics, because the sheet will pop right off cleanly and then will conform back to the shape of the bed. I don't really ever have to re-level my bed. But as we've stated before, if you are leveling your bed, one of the good things to make it last longer is to compress those screws a bit more. Start, take it all the way down to the bottom and then start backing them off to create an even level surface. And the more spring tension you have there, the stronger that hold is to overcome vibrations, and the less likely it is that they will rotate. It won't stop it completely, but it's much less likely. Hopefully that helps you get started on getting that thing reinforced there.
So we got a newbie question from Tokyo Joe that Jerry just took off the screen that we haven't answered.
Here.
There we go. I washed my glass bed with lemon-scented dish soap. Tried glue stick on my prints, won't stick. Can't buy hairspray right now. What else can I do? Level your bed. Make sure that your offset is correct, because no matter what you washed it in, it's not going to leave a film. If you use lemon-scented dish soap, makes no difference.
Yeah, it should come off clean because you don't want residue on your food. I mean, that being said, it couldn't hurt to do a quick pass with isopropyl and
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
just to make sure there's no degreasing agents still on that surface.
Yeah.
Really,
but I would go back and re-level your bed. Make sure that your offset is correct. Apply your glue stick. If you're concerned about the look of it, I don't actually use any soap on mine at all. I basically just take that glass plate, I put it under the tap in the sink, I let it soak all the old glue that's on there, and then I just take some paper towel and wipe it all off.
When it
put
comes
it back
to
on my
glue
machine.
stick, that's why we buy the water-soluble glue sticks, the kid-friendly ones. We like the color-changing ones because it's nice when you're applying it, but bear in mind, that is fully water-soluble, right? So if you go and run it under the sink with warm water, essentially afterwards you should have no residue on that surface. Now, when you introduce a cleaner, I saw, who was it saying here? Ricky B was saying I clean it with Windex. Windex is great, but terrible at the same time, and I'll explain why. Windex is a great degreaser for windows that will make them crystal clear. However, It also helps by adding a little bit of a film to it to smoothen out any defects on the surface. That's why it is mirror clear. Now, in the case of a 3D printer bed, you don't want that because you want the surface to have micro texturing for the filament to grip to. And so usually the way we do it is, ideally you want to run that glass without anything on the surface whatsoever. And then only if you're having sticking issues because the surface is fairly smooth, do you add in glue stick as a bed adhesion enhancer rather than as the sole bed adhesion method.
Correct.
I'm saying use a Lysol wipe and that will fix the grease problem. Yeah, Lysol is, again, a great surface disinfectant, and because it comes in a microfiber sheet, it does a better job of dragging across the surface without leaving particles. But I think that's more the microfiber sheet, actually, than the Lysol wipe. The main thing is keep your chemicals you're using on the bed to a minimum. If you're going to use...
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, for 98% of it, I would say use hot water in a sink. If you have a microfiber cloth like the big multi-packs from Costco, or if you can even get a hold of Kim wipes or something that doesn't leave any speckles, paper
You can
towel.
get them at the dollar store.
Yeah, exactly. Dollar stores, you can get them anywhere. Get one of those, wipe it down after running it clean, and then take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, just pour it into that microfiber cloth, and just do a quick wipe back and forth. Ideally, if it's dry enough, you should see the streak almost evaporate instantly. But remember that isopropyl by itself doesn't dissolve what's on there. You actually need to come in contact with the surface and wipe it away. So that final wipe with the isopropyl will leave you with a mint clean surface.
All right, let's take this question from Eagles Nation 350. He says, first time using the BLTouch auto leveling on my Ender 3 V2 and won't reach my flexible magnet bed. What are the settings I need to correct? That is going to be in your firmware. You're going to have to correct the distance between the auto bed leveling and the nozzle. Now, you ideally, in a perfect world, you want 2 millimeters of space between the tip of the nozzle probe. Can you bring that back up? There you go.
I'm just trying to hold a screw here to simulate a nozzle height here.
When it's fully retracted, so when that nozzle is, or that pin is fully retracted, it should be 2 millimeters up from the very tip of your nozzle. Okay.
Give or take a bit, yeah. If I drop down the screw a little bit, visually you would expect to see it about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's
now, if you go to our
okay.
Facebook page, and I'm going to pull up our Facebook page here. Let me just do this real quick.
So the idea is, and you'll see this with the magnetic pickup, as I lift this, it's going to pop inside, right? If that's, it comes down to a physical offset of this here. And the mount, almost every single mount that's made for these should have that distance pre-programmed in it. But if you have something like a Volcano, you may need to actually use screws to drop it down further. So it will vary machine to machine. But what we usually do is we say put your Z offset as 0 to begin with, and make sure this comes down to the bed, goes tick, bounces up, drops it out again, and then does a slower pass. If it's getting down and it's touching the bed, but it keeps going down, you have to look at the colors. If the light inside the BLTouch is red and it's still going down, it means that the BLTouch came in contact with the bed, but the printer didn't register the Z offset signal from the probe and is still going down, waiting for it to say, I found a Z. But if it's going down and your nozzle's hitting the bed and the light is still off, or it's just see a blue light, then that means that this is actually mounted physically too high, and the probe pin is not going in far enough to register the bed, but the nozzle is coming in impact with the bed. And this applies to pretty much every sensor out there.
All right, so I'm going to just cut over to this real quick. You guys can see here that this is our first layer files section. So if you go into the files section, why is that not all the way down? Let me go back.
Look at us being super technical here.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to see in there is a BLTouch tool.stl. If you go in and download that BLTouch tool and put that underneath the cold nozzle with your BLTouch fully retracted, it'll allow you to set that distance properly between the nozzle and a retracted BLTouch probe. Once you've got that set correctly, then you are pretty much ready to set your offset and get yourself back into the printing. So that's what I just wanted to point out there. There are some useful files over there on our Facebook page, so I would go ahead and use them if you can. Jerry, do you have one more question there?
I have one last question.
Okay.
Da-da-da.
From Stephen
yes, sorry,
Snow. What
I
slicer
remember seeing this
settings
one earlier.
would
Sorry
help?
about that, Stephen. Slipped past me.
What slicer settings would help minimize layer lines? The calibration cube is perfect in all other areas. No ghosting, sharp corners. Okay, layer lines are caused by the resolution in which you are using. So let me see if I can illustrate here. So here, this cube, let me go to the top-down view. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, that'll probably be better.
That'll probably be better. Okay. Cutting over to that. There we go. So if we look at this cube here, okay, this is the Voron cube. Yeah, I've got a little bit of layer lines, but you got to understand this was printed at 0.2 millimeters. So you're going to see those layer lines. If you reduce that to 0.16, 0.12, that's going to significantly reduce those layer lines, and it's going to make your part look a lot smoother. So that is where you're going to reduce those layer lines. If you don't want to sand stuff, then print in a much higher resolution, and slow your machine down when you're printing at higher resolutions so that you don't get ghosting, for one. You don't get artifacting, for another, and you don't get misalignment of the layers. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I was going to try and pull up a photo here, but I'll get this for you guys for next time here. All you need to know is that a layer line, there's two types of layer lines. There is inconsistent layer lines where they happen at random heights.
Yep.
And then there's repeatable ones, which can either be a result of your Z rods giving some wobble, or that your print flow settings are incorrect. So, here's our weekly pump for it. Go check out Michael from Teaching Tech's calibration guide. One of the ones he does is a flow calibrator using a single wall print of a box, basically.
Yep.
And then you measure it and you see what the width of the line actually comes out to. Because if you're seeing, really clear layer lines, I don't think I've got any ones clear enough. Maybe we can see some of this on here with the higher layer lines. Probably not with the video quality, but all you need to know is that a layer line can bulge outwards if the extrusion's too high, if it's too close to the bed. Oh, you know what? I think Jess has one here for me. This is a stringy monster for Stringy Sunday. You can kind of see the, because of the low quality here, the moire effect on this, and that's actually being caused by the layer lines being equal, but being clear on the outside. And sometimes it's as simple as adjusting your flow rate during your print. And so, we're working on a few tools just to show the different flow rates, but for the time being, Michael's tool does a great job at exposing that for you. And because his website generates the G-code, there's no risk of you fearing that it's a slicer setting versus your printer setting. It's a proven set of G-code, so you can compare against his results and say, okay, maybe my machine's not printing at that quality.
Right. So there's one last question here from Snapshot before we wrap things up. We're going over time again this week. He says, guys, when is the best time to remove resin supports, before cure or after? Now, I do a lot more resin printing than Brian does.
Hey. Oh, no, I've actually been doing a lot this week. That's a hint at my upcoming video. But
I will tell you that at the end of the day, I remove mine after I've cleaned the part, but before I cure the part. Because once you cure the part, now that's really solid. It has no flexibility to it anymore. It's literally rigid. So I like to clip them off when they are still soft. That way you don't get a lot of little pock marks in it from the clipping. And then if I've left them just a little long, I'll come back with a little piece of sandpaper or a file and clean them off.
I prefer that you leave them a little long just to make it smoother. Because since I'm the one that cleans everything.
Here's something that, for those of you who are in contact with resin printing companies, this is something that I have been kind of interested in having them do for a long time, is an adaptive exposure, if you will, that has a reduced exposure time for the pixels that are the contact between the body and the supports. Because basically, when you cure it, it becomes harder. When it's soft still, it's par cured, it's got some malleability to it. So when you go and bend it, it actually will likely bend before it breaks. And that's why we don't go gung-ho and expose it at the full final exposure for every layer, is
Correct.
Because they become far too brittle. So when you're dialing in your resin machine, just because it works at, let's say, 12 or 15 seconds doesn't mean that's the best way of doing it. You may actually want to do one of the experimental prints for exposure and see what 8 seconds does based off that material, what 7 seconds does, and then get it to the point where you can still print it, but the smallest points are fragile enough that you can break off all those supports and then cure it to get the final solid one without sitting there. Because if you've ever cured a print and then sanded it, it is not fun.
Okay, Print Factory, I just want to tackle this question before we wrap things up today. Print Factory says, any tips on tuning relationship between E-steps and flow rate? Brian, you answered this question in the chat, but he says, I calibrated my E-steps, but my first layer is a bit thin, lines not connected. Now,
so I can show you an example of this.
That you're not close enough to the bed.
This I just ran off my machine last night there, and I was a little too far off the bed. So as we can see, if we look at this side, the layer lines, there's no layer lines, there's no under extrusion, but that first layer was a little too high. So as a result, if we get in real nice and close, you can see
the
little
spacer.
gaps on the surface. So yeah, you're just a little bit too high on that first layer. If you're too high, you get an effect like that. If you're too low, you may get the elephant foot effect, or you may get a lot of bumpiness on that printing second layer. That just comes down to nozzle height. And as I said, if the rest of the print works really well, that's great. Just means you need to either baby step it down or go into your slicer and look for a manual Z offset and just bump it down maybe 0.04 millimeters, 0.08 millimeters, just to deal with that specific machine. Because we tell people you can fix all this and all these features through firmware, but sometimes it's just as easy as just modifying a slicer setting for now and worry about firmware in the future.
And there you have it, guys. That's our show for this week. We ran a little long, but that's okay. We're getting used to it.
We were a little overdue. We owed it to you guys for skimping out on some videos. So now it's getting full force. We'll have hard cutoffs at 1.
Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we will be doing a members-only live stream. This is where our members can actually be a part of the show. And we will be doing that. I'll be sending out the invites this week, so you guys will have all those.
You won't be able to participate unless you're infill or higher here, I think, right? So make sure if you want to join us on that night there, you just check out that little button. It's let's see, right around here somewhere.
Yeah,
little join button there. Take a look at our membership program and all the levels we offer.
And we do appreciate you for being members, and thank you to all the new members that joined today. We do appreciate that. It helps us immensely. That money goes back into helping us build things like the Voron and buying parts for it and things like that.
Yeah, this was not a cheap BOM setting this up front.
No.
I'm working with electrical distributors, and I think I'm dropping $350 to $400 just on screws, because when you start getting into bulk sizes, and that's one of the pro tips heading up, determine how many printers you want to build, because volume discounts will definitely change the pricing for you.
Correct. So with that said, everybody, I hope you guys are going to have a great week, and we're going to see you, our members, again on Tuesday with another great tip. And then we will see you also on Tuesday for our members-only live stream. Then we're back again on Saturday with our first introduction to the Voron, and we're going to build the frame as much as we can with the parts that we have, and go from there. So we will see you guys next week. Hopefully your week starts out great and that it goes fine, and hopefully those who are scheduled to get your shot, get your shot. Mine's not until the 11th of May, so I'll be going and getting my first shot on the 11th of May. And
I'm so happy.
You've already got yours, right?
Yeah. I I did the Simpsons thing and the road to 300, and it turns out I was just fat enough. So it's a bittersweet moment. I have to go for a jog now. I got to lose these pounds now that I've got a shot in me. But
I'm going to go have a hot dog for lunch, I think.
Oh, the worst thing is, honestly, guys, I'm going to Costco right after this, so one of those hot dogs sounds pretty good right now.
They don't serve the food there anymore. Sorry.
What?
Yeah, they haven't been serving food there for a while.
Oh, the one down in Okotoks has.
Oh.
That's it.
Every time I've been there, yeah.
I guess I'm going to Okotoks for my next Costco run.
Hey, I tried to get you to move here.
Well,
hot dogs and ice
we are still
cream.
going to move there. We're putting it off a year.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're stay tuned, guys, for the Western 3D services there. We are setting up some retail space as early as potentially May 1st down here, which is going to be selling, prints, vinyl cuts, to a certain extent, 3D printer parts. We're just learning the logistics of all of it, but, our goal with this is to get 3D stuff to you. If you're stuck on a weekend and you need some parts, we'll have you covered. That's really the big thing. But until then, I think this is my turn to say this.
Yes.
Remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Bye for now, guys.
Bye-bye.
And we're out.
Cool. That went well.